Welcome. My name is Mary Minix. Those of you who don't know me, I have the privilege to serve on the board of the RVWA. And then also I have the privilege to lead the education task force. So pretty excited that you're here today. And this is the last of our summer series. So we're having, we had 3 different sessions virtually, and then we actually had a session live on negotiating for women, which went over really well. So those of you who are there, thank you. And today I get the privilege to introduce Dustin Kaehr. So he's the founder of Think, Lead, Live Group, an organization that helps individuals and companies think differently, lead courageously, and live passionately. He's received his bachelor's degree in psychology from Grace College and his master's in business administration at Indiana Wesleyan. He has 20 years of experience working with large and small organizations throughout North America, helping with leadership challenges, operational management, and employee customer engagement. Dustin has led breakout sessions, keynotes, and multi-day conferences across the US and Canada, covering topics including the customer experience, leadership development, and personal development. He has clients in multi-billion-dollar companies like Forest River, Grand Design, and Home Hardware Stores Ltd. In Canada. Prior to owning his own company, he launched and served as a director of Lippert Academy for Leadership and was a director of leadership development within Lippert's RV Products division, a division with annual sales over 400 million, nearly 1,200 team members, 4 facilities, and over 200 leaders. He worked with leaders and teams providing leadership trainings, one-on-one coaching, personal development. He's a part of all facilities' core leadership team, providing strategic operational inputs and helping ensure that businesses and culture strategies are aligned. Dustin has worked for Do It Best Corporation, a hardware co-op in the States, for over 12 years. He has spent 3 years in the corporate offices reporting to VP of Marketing and overseeing retail programs, including customer loyalty programs, in-store radio, mystery shopping, and other national partnerships with Habitat for Humanity. He then spent 8 years in the field, calling on 56 hardware stores, home stores, lumber yards, and retail development specialists. In that role, he worked with independent store owners on all aspects of their business, including financial analysis, expansion remodel projects, new location setup, store closing, succession planning, marketing, and leadership and HR challenges. He is a co-author of 2 books, Retail is 50 Thoughts, Ideas, and Conversations to Make Your Business Better. The latest book is released in October of 18, Dear Boys, the letter every son needs from his father. He lives in Northern Indiana and is with his wife, Amber, and their 4 boys. Today, he's going to educate us on how to make difficult conversations easier. So with that long bio, I take it away, Dustin.
Thanks for that. So as we get started, there's going to be a little bit of interaction at the beginning of this. So while I sort of set all of this up, if you would just give me a thumbs up or some emoji of maybe how you're feeling today in the chat box, just so I can make sure I'm seeing that. You know where it is. We're going to need that right at the beginning here for just a couple of minutes, and then you'll be able to be done with that. But as Mary was talking, when she talks about my background, specifically the education piece, I tell people that I've got a bachelor's in psychology, and then I have my business degree. And my experience has been in my years that I use the psychology degree way, way more than I use the business degree. Because I'm a firm believer that every issue at its core is a people issue, right? And you have this wherever you're at. There are people around you that they're not there and you wish they were, or you have some people that are there and you wish they weren't. It's usually one of those, and it's not the people themselves. It's usually the way we show up with each other and the way we interact. And the short of it is, it's really communication. Now, if you were to look at any engagement survey from any organization around the country, when they ask team members, what's one of the biggest issues within this organization, communication is somewhere near the top of that list. Now, I'm not sure what they think they mean when we say communication is an issue. And I don't actually think communication is the issue. I think it's the way we communicate. It's not that we're not necessarily communicating, but it's the way we're interacting and the way we're communicating that's a problem. And that's usually where the angst comes from. You're involved in dozens and dozens of conversations. They're all ongoing even right now. You've got email, you've got unread messages, text messages, and you're in the middle of conversations with people inside of work and outside of work. And you find yourself at times getting mad, angry, upset, hurt, disappointed, this whole range of emotions. And it's not because we're not interacting and communicating, it's the way we're communicating, or maybe the things we're not saying. Sometimes it's not what we say, but the way we actually say it. And so that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today, is about this idea of making difficult conversations easier. And maybe simpler would be a better term for it, because I think it can be simple. I don't know that they're actually ever necessarily easy. But I'm going to start with this. So I'm going to put on the screen. I'm going to flip this slide, and you're going to see 3 lines of copy. The first line and the first sentence are the instructions, and then the second sentence is 2 lines, and you're going to read it. So when I flip this slide over, just read the instructions and do what it says, and then the screen, it'll disappear, and that's where you're going to need to be in the chat. So I'm going to give you, let's say, 14 seconds to do this. Here we go. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay. In the chat, how many F's? 3, 5, 3, 4, 3, 5, 4, 3, 5. Okay. 6, 7. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to give it to you again. I promise you're all looking at the same thing. You're not looking at different stuff. So here we go. I'm going to give you, let's say, 9 more seconds. We'll look at it again. 3, 4, 5. Okay. How many are we at now? Christine's now at 5. She was the first one last time. She had 3, so her answer changed. 6, 6, 5, 3. Okay. Trick question. Someone's wondering, like, why did I even join this call? I'm not sure what's going on all of a sudden. Okay. Some of you, your number might have changed from last time, which is throwing you for a little bit of a loop, and you're just not sure what to do with that information either. One more time. Okay, let's look at it one more time. Here we go. 7 more seconds. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Go ahead and give the number again. There, Anna, up to 6. Still some 3, still some 6. Some of you aren't going to put anything in because you're not really sure what's even going on right now. First time 5, second time 3. I think you're okay, Chantel. I think that's actually probably more normal than you would think when I do this exercise. Okay, what if I'm going to tell you there are 6. There are 6. And so let's look through them. Here we go. Finished files, there's 2. Are the result of, there's 1. Years of, there's another one. Scientific, there's 1. Study, combined with the experience of years. So if you got 3, it's because you missed the F in the word of. So why do we do that? Well, your brain is designed to help fill in the blanks with all the information we have coming, right? So I give you a task, I give you an odd time, 14 seconds, 9 seconds, 7 seconds, and your brain is left to scramble to fill in the blanks. And then you start seeing other people get a different number, and you're looking around and going, legitimately, am I having a stroke? Is there something going on that I'm missing? And so while the F's and ofs, that's a little word, but read the sentence without them. Finished files are the result years, scientific study combined with the experience years. The sentence makes no sense without those little letters, with those little words. And so the point of that is what we're going to talk about for the next bit is probably nothing that's mind-blowing, earth-shattering, world-changing. It's probably just some F's that you've just been maybe missing or maybe you haven't been paying attention to them because you got so much stuff going on. So think of in your roles at work, what you do outside of work, you have all this stuff coming at you. How many F's are you missing just because things are happening so fast, right? Some of you proved at least 50% you're not even paying any attention to. And so what I want to do over this next period of time is maybe we just slow things down a bit and let's just maybe see some of the F's that maybe we're just missing. And if we can't use those as we go through, and we have this conversation about communication and what that actually looks like. So here's what you all know and you feel true at times is that communication is hard. It can be difficult. It can be even more difficult based off your position, based off the position or title of the other person, based off experience, based off how much I even know about a subject, based off of a bunch of different factors. Communication can be hard. And so we're going to do this exercise. So here's what's going to happen. You probably, if you've got a scrap piece of paper or something, you want to jot these 5 words down, or at least be able to jot down 5 numbers, because that's what you're going to do. So let me explain this to you. For every one of those words, often, sometimes, usually, generally, frequently, I want you to think on a scale of 0 to 100. Okay. Now, they do not, the 5 numbers you write down do not have to add up to 100. They are all their own unique range between 0 and 100. So you could have 50 for every one of them. Here's what I want you to do. When you hear the word often, and again, I want you to write it down for all 5. Don't put it in the group chat just yet. Just write it down. When you hear the word often in your head, how many times does something happen if it happens often? And then do that for sometimes. Think about something that's either one or the other. Think about flipping a coin. If you were to flip a coin 100 times, and I said, usually it's heads. How many times out of 100 would that coin turn up heads for you? So just jot down often, sometimes, usually, generally, frequently, 0 to 100. When you hear that word in your head, how many times does something happen if it happens generally or if it happens frequently? Don't overthink this. If you're in a room with other people that are listening in, don't cheat off of them, right? I just want you to sort of a gut reaction to these. And if you're not sure what I'm asking you to do, just make up 5 numbers between 0 and 100, and then we'll just roll with it from there. Okay. All right. So I want to look at often, and I'm only looking at the word often. How many times out of 100 does something happen if it happens often? Go ahead and put it in the chat for me, if you would. 30, 37. Oh, 100. I saw a 96. 25. Okay. So pretty broad range. So what I want you to do, beside whatever number you wrote down, I want you to write down 100 to 25. 100 to 25. That's the range you guys had for often. As I looked through and tried to catch them all, it was 100 was the high, 25 was the low. So write down that range for me collectively. That's what you guys have as a group. Now we're going to go to sometimes. I'm only looking at the word sometimes. Give me the sometimes number. There's the low. I saw 75 as a high. Is anybody higher than a 75? 35s. Okay. Lots on average below 50. Okay. So it looks like the range for that one was 75 to 15. 75 to 15 is the range for sometimes. Now let's go to usually. Usually. Throw out your numbers. There's a 98. There's a 40, some in the 90s, 70s. 90. So I saw 98 at the top. I saw a 40 at the low. Okay. So it looks like that range is 98 to 40. for usually, 98 to 40 as a range. Okay. Now, generally, if something happens generally in your mind, how many times out of 100 does it happen? I saw a 90. I saw a 25, 60, 57, not 55 or 60, 57. There's usually a couple in every group. That's okay. Not a personality assessment. We could make it that, but we won't if you're consistently high or low. But okay. So I saw 90 at the high end. I saw a 25 come rolling through at the low end. So 90 to 25 as the range for generally. And the last one, now frequently. How many times does something happen if it happens frequently? A couple of 95s. There's a 50 as a low. 90, 70, 70, 95. Okay, so again, fairly good range. Let's call that one 95 to 50 as a range. So now just look at those 5 words. Look at your number and then look at the range you guys had. This is why communication is hard. Have you ever had a conversation with someone and just felt like you weren't speaking the same language? Like, how are we using the same words and we're not understanding what each other are saying? This is the perfect exercise. If you have any guts at all, go home and give these same 5 words to your spouse, significant other, or teenager, and you're going to find out really quickly maybe why you're not communicating. Because imagine how this plays out. You're having a conversation with someone at work and you go, "Hey, how good are we at," and you fill in the blank, and that person goes, "Generally, we're pretty good." Generally meaning 90% of the time, or generally meaning, oh crap, 25% of the time. So we're using the same words, but we are not necessarily speaking the same language. And sometimes that's why communication gets to be hard, especially when we don't often enough try to actually understand what people mean. We take so much of their words for face value. But when we communicate, we want people to understand our meaning. We don't just want them to take us at face value, but we do that for people. And here's why. Here's this next idea. So I'm not going to ask you to write words in on the chat, so you can be done with the chat for a bit. If you have any questions, you're welcome to put them in there and drop questions in as we go. I'll probably come back to them. I'll make sure we have some time at the end for questions if you have them. But as we go along, you're welcome to drop them in. So there's this saying that perception is reality. We've all heard that said, that perception is reality. Now, that's true. How I perceive things becomes my reality. But here's the thing, is that the part of your brain that handles perception and imagination, they actually sit fairly close together. And so it's why scary movies work. If you think about watching a scary movie, you go out to the theater, you watch a scary movie, you get home and it's dark and you're walking to your door in the dark. The closer you get to your door, the faster you walk, and you don't turn around and look behind you because the guy from the movie is probably right there, right? Here's how this plays out in my world at home. And maybe this sounds familiar. In the middle of the night, my wife will imagine that she heard something in the kitchen. So her imagination, she imagines she hears something, she lays there, it becomes a perception. And now her reality is, oh my gosh, there's something going on in the kitchen. Because that's her reality, my reality is she's waking me up and I go out to find out there's absolutely nothing going on in the kitchen at all, right? And maybe the dog scared me or something like that. So perception is reality, right? But the bigger piece that we have to remember, especially as it relates to having difficult conversations, is that position drives perception. Where you come from determines how you think. Nowhere is this more clear than in a sporting event. So I officiated high school and college basketball for almost 20 years. So imagine you're at a basketball game and you're watching the game and there's a foul and I call either a block or a charge. You either agree with me or the fans around you think I'm the biggest idiot in the world simply based off the team they're rooting for. It only happens one way. It's either a block or a charge. They're either safe or they're out. It's either your department's issue or it's my department's issue. It's either your kid's fault or it's my kid's fault. It's always based off where we are coming from. Now, here's what I know about every pinch point you've ever had in your life. And again, this is where I lean into the psychology side more than the business side. And I'm also one that I personal and professional, they blend together for me because I think we show up as whole people. Yeah, we can maybe turn it on and turn it off, but it's really hard for us to fully separate. So think about any pinch point you've ever had in your life happens when you come from a different position than the other person. If you have ever been in a relationship or married to someone whose family grew up handling money differently than you grew up handling money, I know what you argued about. Money. Do we buy cars? Do we lease cars? Do we spank our kids or do we just give them timeouts? Well, I would never spank my child. Well, the way I was raised, they can go have a timeout after they get spanked. Like it's always that way. Right now, imagine take this into the work setting. Have you ever had a conversation with someone and you walked away and you thought, that guy has no clue what I'm talking about? I promise you, they've walked away from you and thought, she has no idea what I'm saying. And what we're saying in that moment is they have no idea the position I'm coming from. They're not seeing it like I'm seeing it. And that's because of our experience and it's because of all of these other reasons. Position not only is maybe the way we look at it, it's also hierarchy. Your position, especially if you're in any role of influence, not even necessarily a leadership role, but you influence people. And I think we all influence people, but especially leadership roles, it sounds very different if the CEO says it versus the frontline leader. They can say the exact same thing, but they hear it differently because of the position. Mary mentioned in the bio, I have 4 boys. They're 21, 19, 17, and 15. There are things that I have tried to tell especially my older kids. I have told them for years something. And then all of a sudden they interact with someone that they think of as a different position than dad. It might even be a friend of mine. And that person will tell them the exact same thing and the exact same way I say it. And my kids will come home and go, Dad, you'll never guess what he told me. It blew my mind. And meanwhile, I'm going, well, no kidding, dipstick. I've been telling you that for 5 years, the exact same thing, but they don't hear it. Why? Position. How they see that person drives their perception of what they say. And just as a side note, if you're in a leadership position, it's why you have to be really careful what you say because people are always listening and they're hearing it through the filter of your title. I'm a firm believer. The higher you go in leadership, the less you should talk. And when you do, you should probably just ask questions, right? It's really hard if you're someone like me who verbally processes. I'm a verbal processor, which means I talk out loud and I'm not even sure I believe what I'm saying half the time, but I'm just going to bring you along with me while I talk. That's okay. But if you're in a leadership position, people are like, oh, well, that's what you want me to do. You just said it. I'm like, oh, hold on. That may be a terrible idea. I'm just talking out loud. We have to recognize that where we come from absolutely determines how we see things and how we think. Right? And you know this specifically if you've dealt with or have ever had interactions and conversations with multi-generational workforce, right? The perception and the position of a boomer versus a millennial, how they see things, their communication can frustrate the heck out of each other, mostly because of the way we show up and how our position drives our perception, which then becomes our reality. It's why the idea of empathy is so critically important in any conversation. The ability to not agree with. Empathy doesn't mean I agree with you. Empathy doesn't mean you're right. Empathy means I need to understand why you see it the way you see it, how you see it that way, and can I in any way, shape, or form feel what you're feeling? I don't have to agree with you. We don't have to go along with your idea for me to have empathy. But empathy allows me to maybe see it from a way that I haven't seen it before. That's why it's so important, especially when we talk about a crucial conversation, how we do that. And so I want to shift here and start to talk about what is an actual crucial conversation? What are these hard and difficult conversations look like. And there's really three components to a crucial conversation. Okay. Um, there's three components around this idea of a crucial conversation. Here's the first one: opposing opinions. It doesn't mean that it just means I think one thing, you think another. So we may not even be fighting about it, but I believe something and you believe something different. We have an opposing opinion about this thing, this topic, this idea, this person, this strategy, whatever it is. We just have a different opinion. We're not in 100% alignment on everything. And think about how many things in your life you're in 100% alignment with at work. Usually you try to work towards some alignment, but right out of the gate, very rarely do you 100% agree with everything, right? So opposing opinions is that first piece. Here's the second one: strong emotion. Now, it doesn't mean that there's yelling and screaming. It doesn't mean that vein in my forehead has popped out and I'm that mad. It just means I deeply believe what I believe. I deeply believe the thing I believe. My opinion, I deeply believe that. And I have strong feelings and emotions, and you're not going to back me off of it easily. So we have opposing opinions, you have strong emotions, and then thirdly, you have high stakes. So there is something at stake for this conversation we're about to have. We're going to make a decision on a product. We're going to make a decision on hiring, on letting go, on promoting, on a product, on dealing with a customer, bringing on a vendor, whatever those are, there are high stakes involved. Here's what I would say is that you are involved, we are involved in crucial conversations more often than we realize. And if we don't recognize we're in the middle of one, we probably will screw it up. We'll probably screw it up. Think of all the conversations you have ongoing right now where there are opposing opinions, strong emotions, and something at stake. You don't have to go through your text message threads very long to realize you're in the middle of a dozen of them. Let me give you the perfect example. If my wife and I decide we're going to go to dinner on a Saturday night, and I'm like, great, where would you like to go? And she goes, I don't care anywhere. Now, whether I know it or not, I've just stepped into the middle of a crucial conversation because here's how this is going to go for me. My wife and I are high school sweethearts. We were dated for 6 years. We've been married now for 25. So I know exactly what's coming next. I'll say, where do you want to go? And she'll be like, I don't care. And then she'll proceed to say no to the next 5 or 6 restaurants I rattle off. I am now squarely in the middle of a crucial conversation. We have some opposing opinions. By now, my emotions are strong. I'm doing everything I can not to let them show, but I promise you, there are strong emotions. And if you don't think there are high stakes, because if I screw it up from there, the rest of the night is shot. In fact, if I screw it up, there's a good chance we don't even go eat dinner. And the whole thing ends poorly. So you can think about conversations you're in with your spouse, with a close friend, with your teenager. We just are moving. My second son is moving into school today at Northern Michigan, up across the UP, up in the UP. My wife is with him. And I will tell you I can't tell you how many crucial conversations we've had in the last 5 days trying to get a 19-year-old ready to move out. And I'm like, at some point you should start packing. He's like, I got 3 days. It's fine. Uh-huh. And the stakes get higher and the emotions get stronger and all of those things. But we get in the middle of those crucial conversations. Think about how many you're involved in work right now. Some of you have a crucial conversation coming up at your 2 p.m. meeting. But you didn't think of it like that until now. And all of a sudden you realize, oh, actually, yeah, there's opposing opinions, so there's strong emotions and there's high stakes. So what happens when we find ourselves in the middle of a crucial conversation? I would argue the most important thing you can do is you got to catch it. You have to recognize that I'm in one. As soon as you say something and someone pushes back, and by pushback, I mean they just give you a different opinion. Well, I don't know if it's that. Well, what about all of those are cues? Now there's a different opinion. You have to go, okay, I'm in the middle of a crucial conversation. How I act from this moment forward will change everything. And when you think about it, sometimes those crucial conversations pop up and they happen in an instant, and you don't have a lot of time to prepare for them. And those are the ones that we just have to naturally work to get better at. But we also have crucial conversations where we know it's going to be one. In fact, it's on your calendar and we don't prepare enough for it. I can't tell you how many times I've sat with a leader who's getting ready to tell me they're going to go have a crucial conversation with someone. And I say, okay, so tell me what you're going to say. All right. And I go, and what do you think they're going to say back? And then they would tell me. And it's usually an opposing opinion. And then I would ask the leader, I go, okay, so what are you going to do then? And they go, I don't know. We'll just see how it goes. Like, that is not a freaking plan. Like, that's a plan to make it go terribly. When you know you're going to have crucial conversations, do the work in advance in the quiet of your office before you ever go talk to that person to plan it out. And we're going to give you a tool when this is over. I'm going to briefly show you a tool, and then I'll make sure to share, I'll actually share it with Mary and allow her to send it to everybody. It's a planning tool for crucial conversations. And it's actually a worksheet that you can use before you ever go into a crucial conversation. And it can start to help get your head in the right spot so you can have them. Again, it's not that we're not communicating, it's are we communicating productively in a way where we can work together and we're in alignment with the organization's mission, vision, values, and all of those sorts of things. Because here's what happens when we get in the middle of a crucial conversation, we show up and we've got in our head, we've got what we call the fool's choice. This idea that, okay, now that I'm in the middle of it, I have two choices at this point. Here are the two choices I have. I can say something, I can push, or I can push back, and I can say something and turn my coworker, boss, I can turn them into a sworn enemy, and they will not be happy with me. Or I can just suffer in silence and let this bad, whatever it is, just happen. Think of it this way. How many times have you sat in a meeting and watched somebody figuratively burn the place down to make sure they got their way? That's the top end of the fool's choice. I'm going to say it no matter what. I don't care if you don't like it. Why are you mad at me? I'm just telling you the truth. Okay, that's one way. Or maybe you've experienced this. You sat in a meeting and you started to watch the conversations, and then you start realizing where they're going to go with the decision. And in your head, you thought, are we really going to do this? Is this the decision we're making? I can't believe this is what he thinks we're going to do. And you sit there in silence and you don't say anything. Both of those are at the end of the fool's choice, right? Now, sometimes we say stuff and we're like, I don't care what they think, or go back to position. We think, well, because of my title, I have to say something. Because of my title, I'm going to make sure that I get the way I want. I'm going to get my way. It's going to go the way I think it should go because it's my position, it's my team, it's whatever it is. Or we don't say anything because, like, well, I've only been here a year. I've only been here 6 months. I don't know what's going on. I don't understand this. And that guy's been in this industry for 27 years. Like, I can't say anything to him. So we sit in silence. When we do either one of those, we are in the middle of the fool's choice. And no matter which one we choose, the reason it's called the fool's choice is because whichever one you choose, it doesn't go well. It doesn't go well, right? There will be repercussions if you blow up a meeting or turn someone into a sworn enemy. Maybe it's a conversation with your boss, your leader. Maybe it's a conversation with HR. Who knows what that is? Or maybe if you don't say anything, you're now left with a bad decision for the team, for the organization, for a person. And now you're left maybe cleaning it up or dealing with the fallout. There's actually a third way. And the third way is the way of having a crucial conversation. And there's a couple components. There's a couple components to this third way. Okay. And so here's the first component to the third way of a crucial conversation is we have to have dialogue. We have to have dialogue. Now, here's the definition. To take part in a conversation or a discussion to resolve a problem. If you had this as a handout, I would tell you to underline problem. It is not to take part in a conversation or discussion to get people to think like me, to make sure I get my way, to make sure my department wins, to make sure my whatever gets priority. It's to solve a problem. We have to think about the issues as an issue that lives between us. So if Mary and I have a problem, and I use Mary because she's right now the only one I see on my screen. So if Mary and I have a problem, That problem has to live between us. Mary is not the problem. Let me just tell you, the other person is never the problem. Now, maybe the way they're thinking, maybe their mindset, maybe their actions, maybe their behaviors, maybe their lack of training, maybe those are problems. The person, that other human being across from you, is never the problem. Because as soon as I make the other person the problem, it's my job to fix, it's my job to prove, it's my job to make sure I prove I'm right. We have lost the ability to solve the problem, regardless of your what you think of the political environment in this world. Imagine if we could just actually solve problems and not make the other person a problem, right? I used to do a lot of work between first shift and third shift. And it's funny, you go into first shift and first shift would blame all the problems first thing in the morning on third shift. It's those guys overnight. That was the problem. And third shift would always blame first shift. Well, it wasn't the people, it was the way we weren't transitioning well. It was poor communication and lack of understanding that was the problem. It's never the other person. The problem is the problem. The other person isn't. We have to start with that. And then you have to look at the first part of that definition: to take part in a conversation or discussion, dialogue. None of you probably thought you were going to get a Latin lesson, but here you go. Dia means two, log means talk, two people talking. Think about what the word monologue means. What does mono mean in Latin? Mono means one. Have you ever had a conversation with someone and when they were done, they walked away and said, "Hey, thanks for the conversation. That was great." And you look around and you're like, "I actually didn't get to say anything because you never shut up." That wasn't a dialogue. That was a monologue. That was someone that did all the talking the entire time and then wanted just to make a decision. Remember when I said earlier that the higher you go in leadership, the less you should talk? This is one of those times where leaders, if you come in first and you start going, "Okay, here's the problem, here's what I think we should do," and then you talk for 12 and a half minutes on the solution you've thought of, and then you stop and go, "But I want to know what you all think." Guess what? They're probably not going to tell you what they think, because you're like, "Well, you already told us what you want to do, so we'll just go along with that." Fool's choice, right? We have to be able to have conversation, which means we have to listen well. Remember, listening to understand, going back and going, "Hey, when you said that, what did you mean by that?" Trying to practice empathy. Okay, I can see how you feel that way, but let me maybe share my perspective on that. We have to be able to have dialogue. We have to be able to create environments where we can do that, right? And again, every organization has its own unique environment and culture to do those types of things, right? So I think about specifically Grand Design. It's one of the folks I'm fortunate enough to work with on a regular basis, and love being out there. But one of the core values they have is respect. And this idea, as they've defined it, is acting with integrity and transparency towards each other, because believing in each other is the foundation for relationships. In other words, if I'm going to live out and be respectful of the value, that means I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, right? And by the way, I think we should always treat people with respect. Even if we disagree, we should treat them with respect. I don't think there are many people you work with, they wake up and go, "I cannot wait to go in and completely blow up Susan's day. Like, I cannot wait to get in and just mess everything up." Now, you probably have people on your team, you're fully convinced they wake up and that's their only mission in life. Remember the old Looney Tunes where you had Wile E. Coyote and Sam the dog, and they would pass each other at the time clock, and their only mission in life was to just ruin each other's lives? Sometimes we think of people on our team that way. And by the way, I promise you, if that's how you see that person, you never get anything productive done towards accomplishing goals with that person, because you made the other person the problem. And so now you've lost all the ability to have any real dialogue. What you have is a bunch of false harmony, a bunch of pretending, a bunch of politicking, and then you have a real conversation at the water cooler after the meeting that you should have probably had when you have the meeting. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a group in a meeting with folks and said, "Listen, if we're all going to go to the water cooler and talk about it afterwards, let's just have the meeting after the meeting right now. And it'll probably be more beneficial." Will it be harder? It absolutely will be. Do I need everyone to show up with a new level of intentionality for the sake of good? Absolutely. Do I just need everyone to sort of show up and be an adult? Absolutely. That's what we have to be able to do, because we're looking for dialogue. The more dialogue we have, the better the conversation, and the better the conversation, usually the better the solution. We get better solutions when we have more conversation. Think about decisions you've made recently where you didn't talk with people. You didn't get enough dialogue. Man, if we could have just had an extra day or two to talk about that, we would have been fine. Here's the reality: in our world, in our industry specifically, we act like everything is absolutely urgent critical. And if we don't make a decision right now in the next 5 minutes, the world is over. It's not. There is nothing we do that's life and death. Now, if I was talking to a group of anesthesiologists and having this conversation, it would be different. I'm not sure there's much that's life or death in RV if we don't decide in the next 5 minutes. But yet, how many times do we try to make decisions in 5 minutes because it's go, 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 go? Hold on. Can we stop? Can we have a conversation? Can we make sure we get the right people in the room and actually have a dialogue, and not just have one person that recognizes a problem and comes in and goes, hey, here's the problem. Here's what we're going to do to fix it. What's next? And that's what we do. And I think when we do that, the problem is we're forced to make the same mistakes over and over and over again. And sometimes, candidly, it's the nature of this industry, for better and worse. Early on, when I got into RV, someone asked me to describe it. And I said, at some level, it feels like a show up, shut up, put up, and get out environment. Show up, just be here, please. Attendance. That would be great if you could just be here. Shut up, don't talk, don't ask questions. We got it figured out, just do it. Put up your numbers, do your thing, and then get out and go home. Well, that doesn't create the best environment for actually making great decisions. What it does is it allows the same decisions to be made over and over. When we talk about this industry being cyclical, and it certainly is at times, but sometimes I think it's cyclical because, in my experience, when people in positions of decision making at any level, again, I think we all have influence. So at some level, we're all leaders. When you don't know what to do, you just do what you know. When you don't know what to do, you just do what you know, unless you work to get better. If my refrigerator breaks and I got to look at it, unless I watch a YouTube video, everything I know about refrigerator repair is in my head. And by the way, that's very little, right? So I'm going to do what I know. I think in most industries, when we get to critical decision-making points, it's that leaders, because they don't know what to do, they just do the thing they've always done. And because we make the same decisions at the same decision points, we're forced to repeat the same outcomes of those decisions. And we say, well, it's just cyclical. Well, it might be a little cyclical, but we could maybe make a better flipping decision here and maybe have the cycle look a little differently than it did 5 years ago. That's what we're trying to get when we have dialogue. And that's why we need dialogue so much. So that's the first component of a crucial conversation. And when we have dialogue, when we have genuine back and forth, what we get is we get synergy. We get synergy. Now, this is a long definition that I'll put up, and then I'll sort of summarize it for you. The interaction or cooperation of two or more organizations, substances, or other agents to produce a combined effect greater than the sum of their separate effects. Synergy says 2 + 2 = 5, that collectively we make a better decision than we do individually. That the more people I get involved, the more dialogue I have, we make better decisions because we can work together and lean on each other, right? If you've ever had to make a really hard decision and you got the counsel of other people, you probably made a better decision because you got input. Know anyone in your life that doesn't get input from anybody ever, and they just unilaterally make decisions, and then they wonder why their life looks like a tire fire in a dumpster and they can't figure out why? And we're like, well, if you'd ask somebody, if maybe you'd have a little conversation with someone else, it maybe wouldn't be like that for the 97th time in a row, because they're just doing what they want on their own. We need to have synergy. Well, how do you get synergy? What does that actually look like? Here's a great representation. It's this idea of the shared pool of meaning. Every decision we make comes from this pool of meaning, this pool of understanding and what we've got going on. So when there's a topic to be discussed, all of us have some amount of information about that topic. I might only have a tablespoon. I might have a 55-gallon drum. I might have a 24. I've got some level of information I have. When we have dialogue, productive dialogue, what happens is we all dump our containers into the pool. And as we all dump our containers, the deeper the pool, the better the decision. So a 55-gallon drum is a lot of information, but we could make it a little deeper if we added a couple tablespoons as well. Remember the fool's choice is I sit back and say nothing. We need to create environments for everybody to talk. Again, my experience, the people that have the 55-gallon drums or the 10,000-gallon tanker, they think because they have all that information, they have all the information. And they just go, no, 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 no. Like I've seen this before. It's happened. I know exactly what to do. Let's just do this. And you're sitting here going, yeah, but this might help. But last time I shared it, he ripped me apart, or last time I did this, she embarrassed me in front of the team. And so I'll just sit and hang on to this. Fool's choice. Or you're like, you know what? I'm actually going to throw the entire water bottle at you just because I'm so mad about it. Fool's choice. As we have dialogue, we need to deepen the pool of meaning. The deeper the pool, the better the conversation. The better the conversation, the better the decision. Your job is to make sure you're getting information from all the people. Do I have the right people at the meeting? When I'm in a meeting, I like to talk. I'm an extrovert. So here's what that means. I have to work really hard in a meeting to stop talking and go, hey, Christine, you haven't said anything yet. What are you thinking? Because in my head, naturally, I'm like, well, if you're not going to talk, I'll just keep talking. And Christine's looking at me going, well, if he'd shut up long enough to take a breath, I might have something to say, but I'll just wait. Right. And so we've got to be able to have that. And when we do, when we have dialogue, when we find synergy, we make these crucial conversations easier in the sense, make that easier in the sense that we start making better decisions. Crucial conversations, hard, difficult conversations are like anything else. The more you do them, the more comfortable you get. Will they ever be completely easy? Will you ever maybe look forward to them? No, you won't. You have to show up and figure out how to show up and do them. For me, when I show up, because I'm very fact and truth driven, I have to make sure I'm turning on those emotions. Like I literally will tell myself out loud before a meeting or before a one-on-one, Dustin, turn on your feelings. Turn on your feelings, turn on your feelings. You know they're there, just turn them on. Some of you, your feelings aren't the issue. You have plenty of feelings. Your challenge is to make sure you don't get ruled by them in the middle of the moment. My wife is that way. And so when she has an emotional conversation, she knows she needs to have at work. I will tell her, you need to write down your bullet points, get the facts out that you know you want to get. So in the moment, you don't let the emotions win. For me, it's about turning emotions on. If you're a person that feels a lot, let me just add this one piece to these crucial conversations. Every feeling you have is real. They're all real. Don't let everyone ever tell you, I don't know why you're feeling that. Every feeling you have is real, but not every feeling is true. So if you're someone who feels a lot, just act on the feelings that are true. Don't act on all of them. Me, I need to turn them on and not just hang on to the facts. But some of us, again, we let the feelings start to take over, right? And so what I'm going to do real quick is, as I want to make sure I leave probably 10 minutes for any questions if we have any, is this is the tool that I'm going to send to Mary that she'll send out. This comes right out of a book, by the way, called Crucial Conversations. If I can get it and not destroy my office. It's called Crucial Conversations. It's maybe the best book on communication ever. When my children get married or get engaged, this is the book I'm going to give them and their fiance to read. That's how good this book is. So all of this, and there's a lot more in the book. The toolkit is in there as well. There's a couple things that are really good. There's this first idea that talks about what's your style under stress. Crucial Conversations cause stress. You start feeling stressed before you even have to have the conversation. In fact, some of you woke up this morning and before you even got out of bed, you felt a tightness in your chest because you know that 3 p.m. meeting today isn't going to be one you were looking forward to, or you didn't sleep well last night because of it. This quick little assessment starts to talk about, how do I actually show up? How do I communicate? How do I show up under stress as it relates to having crucial conversations? It's a great resource just for some self-reflection. And then then this is the actual worksheet. So this shows everything. This is the entire process of the book that they walk through. What you need to do before, during, and after crucial conversations. This is what I mean. Crucial conversations can happen in a moment, and you can walk into one blindsided. At that moment, you got to take a breath and be in control. Most times, though, crucial conversations happen and you know they're going to happen based off the last conversation you had. Some of you have text messages on your phone right now, and you know, based off the next time you see that person, you could have a crucial conversation. Okay, what do I need to do to plan for it? How can I plan for it? That's what some of these principles and skills down this right side are really good. This idea of this number 3, if you're getting emotional or telling clever stories, we all tell stories to ourselves about people and situations. And those stories start to reinforce what we believe about people. You know, every time I talk to Mary, she's always real quick to just cut me off. And I just feel like she's never listened in all the years I've known her. I just told myself a story about Mary. There's probably some truth to it. Like all good stories, there's probably a little bit of truth, but the best stories have a little bit of truth and a whole bunch of fiction added on top for effect. And everything I've added, I just added to validate my own feelings and emotions and justify how I'm going to treat Mary. We have to be aware of the stories we tell ourselves, or candidly, maybe the stories other people told us about ourselves. You know, you just never listen. Maybe that's someone in your past was telling you that. You know, you talk too much. Like, those stories are real. Again, this is where I lean into the psychology degree. Candidly, I'm a firm believer everyone should probably go to counseling at least once, even if it's all great, just to as a health check. 2 times in my life I've went to counseling because stories in my head in my life started to get in the way. Some of them were self-induced, and others were voices that I really didn't need to listen to anymore, and they were absolutely impacting the way I was interacting with people, personally and professionally. So this is a great resource for you. We're going to give that to you. I'll send that to Mary when we're done, and she'll be able to pass that out. Okay. I'm going to put up this last slide. I'll get to it here. If you get your phones and scan that QR code, you can actually add my contact information right into your contacts. So if you ever want to get a hold of me for something, if there's something I can do to help, please don't hesitate to reach out. I love working in the RV industry. I love the people. I love the environment. Candidly, I also love it because being here in Elkhart County, it allows me to impact the community beyond just the actual industry. And so if there's anything I can do for you or your organization, I would love to have that conversation. With that, we have about 7 minutes left. I want to make sure I leave any time. If there are any questions that anyone has, you're welcome to jump on and ask, or even type it in the chat. The title of the book is Crucial Conversations. It's written by Patterson is the first author. There's a group of them.
Now, is that something that you would recommend reading with your spouse? You said you would give it as a gift for like engagement or weddings. Is that something that you would do together?
Yes, I would like them to do it together.
Perfect.
I was introduced to this book the first time, and I read it the first time in a professional setting, and then I gave a copy to my wife. And candidly, I read it, and I was way more convicted than she was, because she's way better at communication generally than I am. But what it did allow was, at times, recognition where emotion was getting in the way, and I found myself stuck in a fool's choice. And again, if I go fool's choice, I don't sit back quietly. I usually am like, burn it down, baby. Let's go. Again, neither one are great, but that's naturally my wife's tendency is the opposite, which isn't great either. And so we've both had to learn to flex a little bit like that.
There's a question in the chat. What led you to this field and begin training like this?
I sort of fell into it. So when I was doing the hardware piece, I was really doing consulting. They were all family businesses, either single stores or, I mean, we had some that were 75 locations across the Midwest. And so it was a lot of consulting in nature, right? I couldn't sell, I wasn't commissioned. So it was more coming alongside people and helping them figure out what they wanted to do, and how to do it, and maybe help them do it in a way, even if they didn't want to. Like, hey, this is the right thing. How can I make you think it's your idea? I've always been really good with people. I grew up working at the Shipshewana flea market for years, like from the time I was 9 years old till I did some summer stints till in my 40s still. And so I love the people. I think I'm naturally good at reading people and interacting. The officiating basketball piece helped because when you're an official, you can't yell and scream, even if coaches are yelling and screaming. And so then when I had a chance to go into Lippert, it was really the opportunity to come alongside people and going, I don't know anything about manufacturing, but I do know a lot about people. And I can tell when a room full of people aren't communicating well. And so that just naturally led. And then we got to 2020 and COVID, and I was just entrepreneurial enough. I was ready to go back out on my own. And so I sort of joke that I'm probably, because I'm a bad employee, again, go back to the burn it down kind of piece. But actually, I love the sort of fell into it that way.
I went on Amazon to look this book up. Have you done the Crucial Accountability and Crucial Influence at all? Have you read those or?
I've not read them. I've looked through them, but I haven't actually read them. If
Okay.
this book is any indication, it certainly would be good, I would think, but I have not read through those.
Awesome. I think they would be great for this
Yeah, and the reality, it makes sense because all those things go together.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There's a question about sharing too much information.
Overshares.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of us are that, right? So this goes back to, empathy is a crucial piece. There's also some level of being able to read the room, some emotional intelligence to go, okay, is this the time and place for that comment? The comment might be valid. Sometimes the question is this the time and the place for that comment? Right. And naturally in team conversations, I like to press for vulnerability and openness. The best teams that really trust each other, they can have a deeper level of sharing. But if your tendency is to overshare, sometimes you got to remind yourself, do I really need to say it? Normally when I'm participating in meetings, I've got a Post-it note that's on my computer that someone else can't see, and it says wait. WAIT. I'm going to put it in the chat. WAIT. And it stands for why am I talking? Because sometimes I just need to remind myself, stop talking. Like, do I have something to say, or has it just been 7 seconds and I want to hear my own voice again? And that's not necessarily good. So if you overshare, is it the right time? Is it the right place and the right audience?
Heather had a good comment, and I agree with it. Every feeling you have is real, but not everyone is true. I think that is really good. Like, I agree with that.
Especially if you get involved with a group of people where emotions are really taking over.
Yeah.
Reminding everyone going, okay, hold on. All those are valid. Let's make sure what's actually true of everything we're talking about. What's really true? Because it allows us to tie the emotions to actual facts.
Okay, well, we're right at the hour. Thank you very much. We really appreciate this. We appreciate your time, and it's been great, Dustin. He's done stuff for us for 3 years, and we have him here every month, and he does a really great job for our organization. And we just really appreciate him, and then we appreciate your presentation to us here for the RVWA.
Absolutely. Thanks for doing it. I appreciate it. It was great.